is the Savage Nation. Nothing to worry about here. You know, I was watching the debates last night. I left them in at the hateful Bernie, I call him Burn the Sander, or Burn the Sandman. I'm used to his type. I know his type. You could have replaced him with 100 different people. Shmuel Rudinsky, you knew him as Mark Rudd. Bernadine Dorn, her real name was Ornstein. Abby Hoffman. I mean, they're all the same. You understand that? These are all the same people. They distinguish themselves as revolutionaries on the campuses. And frankly, all they do is foment anti-American, anti-Jewish hatred. That's who Sandman is. Do you understand that? Now, Dems that should have been on the stage would include Angela Davis. I'm surprised the Democrats didn't get her. They got some unknown author. Or why didn't they have Louis Farrakhan up there? When you think about it, they espouse the same ideas that he has. Or they could have gotten Charlie Manson, even though he's dead. They could have resurrected him from the grave. He certainly would have looked better than Biden. Ken Kesey, Bob Dylan, Wavy Gravy, Robert Crumb, the cartoonist. They could have used Peter Fonda, Joni Mitchell. There's so many people that were not on that stage that should have been there because fundamentally the art and artistry of the 60s, which was anti-American hatred, was espoused by all of them on the stage last night, which is why I didn't watch it. I watched it for a few seconds until the hateful, disgusting Sanders got up there. And the minute he said, well, we have that soundbite, clip 5. Let's play Bernie and why I left the debates and went to Chinese food. Sanders.
What is your response to those who say nominating a socialist would reelect Donald Trump?
Well, I think the response is that the last poll I saw had us 10 points ahead of Donald Trump because the American people understand that Trump is a phoney, that Trump is a pathological liar and a racist, and that he lied.
I walked out. That was it. I had enough of it. I had enough of this bum. I know the type. I left New York because of people like him. These are the type of people who've destroyed New York and turned it into a cesspool. These are the people who have destroyed New York and turned it into a cesspool. And it's no different than anywhere else. They agitate on behalf of the weathermen in the 60s. Now they agitate on behalf of the homeless, most of whom are like the weathermen. You have sympathy for the homeless? I don't. I just walked in San Francisco yesterday. First of all, the phrase homeless is a misnomer. There is no constitutional right to a home. Let's start with that. I had to buy my first home by working my whole life since I was a boy to make a down payment. What do you mean homeless? They don't want to live outside the city? Well, where do you think the suburbs came from? And why do you think, for example, commuter trains were developed? It's because you see a lot of people wanted to live in cities but couldn't afford it. So they had to live in the suburbs where nobody wanted to live. Now, of course, the suburbs are very livable because the people who couldn't afford to live in the city left and created beautiful places for themselves outside the cities. And the people left in the cities are the very rich and the bums, in plain English. Look, I've been in San Francisco since 1974. The city is visually gorgeous, beautiful, stunning. Gorgeous. But when you walk down on the ground level, on the homeless bum level, I have never, ever seen a degeneration of a city like I saw yesterday. Trash everywhere. The garbage cans overturned. The most dangerous-looking, disheveled bums, which my friend calls them vagrants. He said, don't ever use the word homeless around me. He said they're vagrants, and any other time they would have been taken off the streets. The violence, the crime. Then to top it off, I get in the elevator of the apartment that I live in, and there's marijuana smoke in the hallways. I don't know about you, but I hate marijuana. I don't care if it's legal. I don't care if it's not legal. Alcohol's legal. I don't see people drinking alcohol in elevators, do you? Then why are they letting these stew-bum, drunk potheads smoke marijuana in halls, in apartment buildings? I find it offensive. It's disgusting. The city is decaying, it's degenerating, and it's Nancy Pelosi's backyard. This is exactly what liberalism does to a city. There's nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. Now, each candidate unto themselves, there's something to say about them. I can sit here and ridicule them all I want. I personally don't think they're going anywhere. Take Kamala Harris, for example. Kamala Harris is a product of the machine, the San Francisco machine. She is a nothing unto herself. Now, she is a former district attorney of San Francisco, and she promotes herself as a champion for victims of sexual abuse since she was DA of SF. But I got something from a lawyer friend of mine from a group called churchmilitant.com, where it says that although she claims to fight for sexual abuse victims, victims say otherwise. And they claim that individuals who were victims of clergy sexual abuse went to her, and Harris did nothing to help them. She swept it under the rug for the church. The article is called "Is Harris Lying About Her Sex Abuse Record?" It's by William Mahoney, churchmilitant.com. It's on michaelsavage.com. I won't bore you with that. Let me go into another story about Kamala Harris. She pulled a race card, which she used all her life, as you well know. Affirmative actions worked for her very well. So she tried it last night again, where I'm the only African-American here. All right, great. Is that a claim to fame? Does that make you somehow superior to everybody? Why don't you tell us what you've actually achieved in your life and tell us, instead of telling us what's obvious to everybody else, Kamala? Her own father, and this is very telling, her own father says the family descended from a Jamaican slave owner. I don't know if you know that. Did you know that? Her father, Donald J. Harris, wrote an extensive essay about the family's heritage in Jamaica at Jamaican Global Online in January, claiming to be the descendant of a famed black slave owner. That's Harris's father. Did you guys know that? Did anybody know this? Her own father said, stop it. Here's what Kamala Harris, the victim, here's what her own father had to say back in January when he was offended by his daughter's fabrications. He said, my roots go back within my lifetime to my paternal grandmother, Miss Crishy, née Christina Brown, descendant of Hamilton Brown, who is on record as plantation and slave owner and founder of Brownstown, and to my maternal grandmother, Miss Iris, née Iris Finnegan, farmer and educator, from Anon Town in Inverness, ancestry unknown to me. The Harris name comes from my paternal grandfather, Joseph Alexander Harris, landowner and agricultural produce exporter, mostly pimento or allspice, who died in 1939, 1 year after I was born, and is buried in the churchyard of the magnificent Anglican church, which Hamilton Brown built in Brownstown, and where, as a child, I learned the catechism, was baptized and confirmed, and served as an acolyte. Now, what does this mean to you? Take home the message, which is very important. Her own father told her to cut it out. Her own father claims to be the descendant of a famed slave owner himself. What does that tell you? If you can't figure it out, I can't help you. Every last one of them is a liar. Every last one of them will destroy America. Every last one of them helped elect Donald Trump for term number 2. Phone number is 855-400-7282. Bernie is a corned beef commie or a air-conditioned Che, whichever one you prefer. Do we have that soundbite ready, Robert? Is it ready to fire yet? We had a little problem with it. You know, back in 2000, there was an election, and I did a piece that became virally famous. And I think I'm just going to play it for you because nothing has really changed. Are you ready to go, Robert? Fire away.
38 states said yes to Bush. 12 states said yes to Gore. Are some states more equal than other states? South Florida, for example, the land of the New York Communistic Front, the millionaires grifting off the welfare state, pretending to each other the moral indignation of the downtrodden, acting with heads held high and jaws thrust out as victims of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Lexus liberals with Volkswagens on their brains, condo commies, lunchroom Lenins, stand-up Stalins, miserable Maos, pathetic Pol Pot Marxists using black street gangs as their body armor, stealing ballots, grifting SSI, faking disabilities, voting for Al Gore, all in a day's work. South Florida, the land of sunshine, schmoozing, and now stupidity. The whole world now knows New York Communist Democrats are too stupid to vote straight, but smart enough to twist the truth when their benefits are threatened. South Florida, the land of suntan Trotskys and delis, bypassed Bolsheviks and Buicks, air-conditioned Che's and condos, loud, lewd losers in limbo, stuck between their investments and their liberalism, lost to their religion, fervent in their non-belief, save the DNC, their new religion. Corned beef commies, buffet bolshies, jogging jokesters stuck in Camelot fantasies, Kennedy their last idol, a drunk profligate warmonger covered for by his beautiful wife, Hillary, their personal Evita Peron, Bill, their shameless Shagets, Tipper, their tipsy donut, Al, their Shabbos Goy, South Florida, the land of sun and SOBs.
Savage.
That's pretty good. I mean, that was done in the year 2000, right here on the Savage Nation. It was very good, but has anything changed? You're telling me that you didn't see the same thing last night with slight changes? I mean, Bernie Sanders is a corned beef commie. Bernie Sanders is a Lexus liberal. Bernie Sanders is a suntan Trotsky. Bernie Sanders is a buffet Bolshevik. It's all the same and nothing has changed. The only one missing on that stage last night was Angela Davis, Louis Farrakhan, Bernadette Dawn, Charlie Manson, Joan Baez, Ken Kesey, Wavy Gravy, Robert Crumb, Yoko Ono, Peter Fonda, and or Joni Mitchell. I'm Michael Savage. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. You know, there's a lot of warnings you don't want to miss out on, like a sign saying bridge out ahead or the lifeguard announcing there's a shark in the water. But in the digital world, there may not be a warning when it comes to cyber threats. And that's why LifeLock Identity Theft Protection includes Norton Security for more protection. You see, LifeLock uses proprietary technology to help detect threats to your identity, like your personal info for sale on the dark web. Oh, you think you heard all this before? Well, Norton Security protects your devices from ransomware, emerging viruses, and other online threats. And listen, if you have a problem, their agents will work to fix it. Of course, no one can stop every cyber threat or prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But having LifeLock with Norton means we'll warn you about the threats you could otherwise miss on your own. Well, join LifeLock right now and get 10% off your first year. Just call 1-800-LifeLock or go to LifeLock.com. Use promo code SAVAGE. That's promo code SAVAGE for 10% off. 1-800-LifeLock or go to LifeLock.com. Promo code SAVAGE for 10%.
You're listening to Michael Savage. Coming up at 3, it's Mark Levin on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Don't you want somebody to love? Don't you need somebody to love? Wouldn't you love somebody to love? You better find somebody to love.
Suddenly it's 1963 again. And there they were, the same crap from the campuses in the 60s. Have they not learned anything? What are they promising America? Let's see, jobs? Excuse me, we have the best economy in 50 years. So the communists cannot produce jobs other than government jobs. And as we all know, there's a limit to government jobs because someone has to pay for them. So what are they promising us? They're not going to deport illegal aliens? Why? We need more of them here? You want to take in all of the world's poor? Oh, wait a minute. They all raised their hand and said, I'm going to give health care to every illegal alien. That's why we have soldiers and sailors and airmen waiting for health care in veterans hospitals. This is a sick group of people. In another time, they would have been arrested for sedition, but there they were. They all want to be president. And what are they running on? Hatred. Hatred for the American way. Hatred for Donald Trump. Hatred for anybody who does better than them. All they were selling was hatred. Tell me what they offered other than hatred. There was not a single idea up there other than hatred. That's my opinion. Which means Donald Trump will be reelected by a landslide. Every time I see them, I realize that. If he just can control some of the tendencies towards tweeting and over-the-top reactions, he's in like Flynn. He'll win by 30 points because nobody wants this. Nobody wants, unless the economy blows out, which is an unlikely, happening. That's the only thing that could bring him down would be a blowout in the economy. Let's take some calls on the Savage Nation. Sean, calling from California, line 1. Go ahead. What's on your mind, sir?
Yes, thank you for taking my call.
All right, quick. Could you make it quick, though, because we have very little time?
Yeah, so as I was watching the show last night, actually the show, I was sitting there thinking about something. I noticed Republicans want to always, or at this point, they're labeling Democrats socialists, the far right, I guess. I mean, would you consider, would everybody that's a Democrat be a socialist?
Wait, excuse me. Bernie Sanders calls himself a Democrat socialist. So what do you mean labeling him? He labeled himself that.
Well, I'm talking about, no. If No, we're talking about, well, there was other 23 other people up there, or 25.
Well, there were 23, but every one of them is a socialist, even though they don't say they are. What would you call giving away other people's money but socialism?
What would be?
What would you call giving away other people's money other than socialism? What would you call giving health care to illegal aliens other than insane socialism? Where is that in the Constitution that we have to take care of the world's poor, but we have millions of our own that we can't care for? Who is going to care for the poor in this country?
Hello?
All right, thank you. I can see we're going nowhere. As I've said to you, the audience on this show many times, hell has been defined as a place where there is no reason. I was just in hell for about 2 minutes, and I don't intend to stay there. If you call this program, kindly have a cogent statement to make and try to make it kind of right away, and let's have a discussion. Otherwise, it's hell for the listener and hell for me. Let's go to Jeff on line 2, California. Again, sir, what's on your mind?
Well, I just want to keep bringing up that Kamala Harris, everyone wants to give her the glory for last night, but I think it needs to keep being brought up the fact that, you know, I'm a former agent on one of her DOJ task forces, and she wants to run on the premise that she was a strong prosecutor, strong for cops. She wasn't. She fought to free a convicted cop killer, fought to not give him the death penalty. She disbanded the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement, which was a major unit of the DOJ. The body cameras that she claimed that she forced us all to wear and keep on, half of them never worked. We had to share them amongst each other. She's just 110% not what she's saying that she is.
Kamala Harris is a lightweight intellectually. She is also a product of the corrupt San Francisco machine. She is a machine politician. Now, we know what machine politicians can do to a city, a state, and a nation. She is nothing but a creation of the corrupt San Francisco political machine. Unto itself, that is not an indictment, because there probably are people who can come out of a machine and still be able administrators. She was a terrible administrator. She lied about her record as a prosecutor. She was actually not what she said she was, and nobody in the DA's office has anything good to say about her, Jeff, and I thank you very much for calling the Savage Nation. And by the way, there are many real skeletons in our closet that the Trump machine is going to dig up when the time is right. They're waiting to see who emerges as the front runner before the very able Republican machine goes into action and digs up the real skeletons in the closets of the, let us say, individuals who might stand an opportunity to run against him. We all know who Donald Trump is. He's been raked over the coals in the most unimaginable, unfair way, and nothing came of it. No matter what they've tried, it didn't stick. I'd like to see those rules applied to Joe Biden and Joe Biden's history in Ukraine and China and the other things hanging around Joe Biden. I don't think he'll survive the second cut.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE.
This KSFO.
You know the day destroys the night.
Yeah, right.
Night divides the day.
All right, man.
Try to run, try to hide. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other
He's
side.
dead. He's dead. Another one broke through to the other side. He's dead. All they saw was drug, sex, rock and roll, and death, and a worship of death. Now, you'd say the 60s are dead, but you're wrong. There they were in living color last night on the stage. There was nothing that I heard that was not espoused on college campuses from sea to shining sea in the 1960s, the same rubbish. Not one of those would-be presidents, not one of them, offered anything except hatred and taking from the white middle class. Let me be very clear. I'll be as clear as I can be. The one group that they targeted was the middle class, primarily the white middle class, men and women. The white middle class that works hard, the white middle class that provides the largest tax base in this country, were the targets of every one of those left-wing fanatics on the stage last night. That is Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand, Michael Bennett, Eric Swalwell, whoever he is, Andrew Yang, what a putz he was. He couldn't finish a sentence, that one. He's going to give $1,000 to everyone in America and doesn't know how to fund it. The only one who made a little sense was former governor of Colorado, John Hickenlooper, but he didn't get too far because he was too reasonable. So tell me what they offered us. We have a little montage for you of the Dem candidates giving the first thing they would do as president in a couple of words. Robert, see if we can fire number 4. See if it works.
What is that first issue for your presidency? I'm asking you, please, for 1 or 2 words only. Eric Swalwell, you're first.
For Parkland, climate change.
Affordable daycare.
That's one.
DACA, guns.
Oh,
People have got to stand up. We can transform.
Mr. Vice President.
Bring together the entire world, 196 nations, to commit to defeat.
We got to fix our democracy. I would pass a $1,000 freedom dividend. I would pronounce it well before the election to make sure we don't
Make New Zealand a place where it's the best place in the world.
get the boot off of people's throats.
And I will tell her girlfriend you were so on.
At least it was shorter
No, they weren't.
responses.
Not at all.
All right.
A confederacy of dunces. Are you telling me there's someone on that stage who you would consider an alpha brain? There's an individual on that stage you would consider a superior mind? You know, think about Trump for a minute. I was bicycling this morning and I was saying, let's put aside all of the hatred that's been inflicted upon him. And as bumptious as he might be and as this and that, think about all the buildings and all of the structures around the world with his name on them, whether it's Trump Tower or golf clubs or hotels around the world. That's what he accomplished. That's what he's achieved. That's what he's done. That's what his legacy is before he was president. There is not an individual up there who's achieved anything in their life other than lying to people and becoming a politician. Not one of them has achieved anything that I know of other than becoming a lying politician. You know, I think about legacy. What is legacy? Well, Trump's legacy before he was president were all the buildings and such with his name on them. He built them. Whether you like him or not doesn't matter. It's a big achievement to build a skyscraper. Whether you're the producer of it or the builder of it, it's a huge achievement. My legacy will be my books, no doubt. See, my 29 or 30 published books are my buildings. I thought about it today. I never built a building, but I've left a record of my passage through this earth. It's in my books. That's why I've always been a writer. Things have changed in some ways, but the written word to me is still very powerful. And my books represent my legacy. Trump's legacy before his presidency were his buildings. Can you name one of those individuals who has anything that is of legacy value? What is Joe Biden's name on? What is Bernie Sanders' name on? What is Pete Buttigieg's name on? What is Harris's name on? What is Yang or Swalwell or any of those folks' name on? Nothing. They have no legacy. They've done nothing for society. Nothing. Now, we see which way the media is going. The first night, they steered it towards a specific candidate, giving that a candidate center stage and more time. Last night, they were trying to steer it. They were told to steer it to Joe. That's how NBC works. But instead, okay, Harris suddenly was given more attention and more time than anybody else. Suddenly, they thought she was the great hope. Let me tell you something. She's no hope whatsoever. And before long, when the Trump machine goes into overdrive, they will dig things up on her that will not be very pretty. If she was ever subjected to the kind of FBI investigation that Trump was subjected to, she wouldn't be a candidate, is what people are saying about her in her hometown. It's sickening to watch this. But I think the American people are actually smarter than the Democrats give them credit for being. Now, there's a side issue that is very important to me. The Medal of Honor winner this week, David Bellavia, I listened to his speech, and it was such a moving speech. It stirred my spine. And I thought about Trump and his people picking Mr. David Bellavia to get the American Medal of Honor, the highest award anyone in the military can get. And I thought about this man really deserved it, if you think about what he did in combat, Bellavia. And Trump, somehow through his own people, got the best guy possible, or one of the best, and he gave him the Medal of Honor. Can you imagine if Kamala Harris, God forbid, became president, who she would grant the Medal of Honor to? Who would she give it to? Someone in the street gang who killed 5 cops, who survived the shootout, and says that, this young man grew up in terrible circumstances, and he had no option but to become a drug dealer. And the evil police harassed him every day of his life, and all he was doing was selling crack. He's just selling crack cocaine. And he got into a shootout with the police, and luckily he survived, and he killed 5 of them. So for that, we're giving him the Presidential Medal of Honor. Well, who would Bernie Sanders give a Medal of Honor to? Do you see where I'm going with this or not? I'll tell you where I'm going with this. You have to ask yourself who they would have given them to. Bernie probably would give it to some LGBT transgender soldier who was bullied in the barracks. That would be his idea of a Medal of Honor winner. Elizabeth Warren, would she give it to an invented Pacific Islander who lost his home due to flooding from climate change? This should give you an idea of how important the presidency is in terms of shaping the culture of our nation. Trump chose a real hero, a genuine combat hero, as opposed to a politically correct nothing turned into a hero by the media. And that is why I had to turn the debate off last night. I could not listen to these people. Anti-Americans, every last one of them. In another age, they would have been arrested for sedition. They would not be on that stage. They're going to give free health care for illegals. They're going to erase our border. There is not an enemy on the planet of this earth that has said he would do that to this nation. And yet these people would do more damage to this nation than the Soviet Union ever could have done or communist China could have ever done. That's why I turned it off last night. In every space of this nation, the worst people would be awarded, whether it be a Medal of Honor in the military if the Dems won, or right down to school board president. It would just become affirmative action at every level. They wouldn't think about bravery. They think about diversity. The contrast between the speech of this brave soldier made about sacrifice and service up against what you saw on stage last night tells you all you need to know about where the future of the country is headed. And you have a very clear choice. A very clear choice. I need to play a little bit of the speech of Medal of Honor recipient David Belavia talking about the sacrifices made by America's military. Clip 2, please.
Combatants bear witness to all aspects of the human condition. It reveals the darkest parts of the human soul while residing side by side with the most exalted characteristics: nobility, honor, valor, and God's grace. Why do American warriors under fire do what men have done since this nation's inception? This is a common thread that connects the militias of Lexington and Concord with the warriors of Fallujah. It is our love of nation, our way of life, and our love by those who we serve with side by side. We defend, we avenge, we sacrifice, we bleed, and we are willing to die for this unique creation, the United States of America.
Well, I'll pause here.
I am complete.
This guy is so inspiring, this Medal of Honor winner selected by this president, Donald Trump, that his speech should be heard by every school child in the United States of America. It might restore some faith in humanity and some faith in this nation. And I want you to compare this Medal of Honor recipient, David Belavia, who was selected by Donald Trump, who is commander-in-chief, whether you like him or not, to who these left-wing fanatics would select for a Medal of Honor or a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Can you imagine the cultural meltdown that would go on in this nation? Can you? Now, I want to talk about burglary for 1 minute because a recent Gallup survey shows Americans worry more about burglary than almost any other crime. And yet most people don't even have home security. Only 1 in 5 homes have home security. And that is why I recommend Simply Safe, because they have transformed home security by breaking down all the barriers to get you the best, most reliable and comprehensive protection available. Every window, every door, no drilling, no contract, no hidden fees. Just visit simplysafesavage.com. simplysafesavage.com.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. I bet you say some days I wish this double chin would just go away. Who doesn't? Newsflash, ladies and gentlemen, people see your jawline, and it simply tells your age. Now, here's Robin from Lubbock, Texas. She said, I put Genucel jawline cream on my neck 2 or 3 days ago. She says, this is the best my neck has looked in 20 years. People told me my face looked young. I'm blown away. Using MDL technology and Chamonix's proprietary base, Genucel's brand new jawline treatment specifically targets the delicate skin around the neck and jaw for tight, healthy, younger-looking skin. See results right before your eyes, or 100% of your money back, no questions asked. Call now, and the classic Genucel for bags and puffiness is free with your order. And to start seeing results in 12 hours or less, Genucel Immediate Effects is also yours free. No double chin, no turkey neck, and no sagging jawline, because no one needs to know your age. 800-SKIN-891 or Genucel.com. Get your 2 free gifts and free express shipping. Call 800-SKIN-891 or go to Genucel.com. That's Genucel.com.
Now back to Michael Savage on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
The songstress, Pied Piper of Insanity. All right, there it is. That's the 60s all over again. The 60s are calling. You know, I study revolutionary movements as a hobby, and one of the movements I've been studying is Hitler's revolutionary movement. I don't think many of you know that one of the things Hitler offered to gain power, to get elected, remember, he was elected to power. And what he offered to win elections was free health care and free education. I don't know if you know that. You probably don't. Free health care, free education. Those are the tools of the dictators. It was used by Castro in Cuba. And if people are desperate enough, they will vote for dictators. Kamala Harris and the Dems are peddling the same kind of lie. They're peddling socialism. And what was considered evil in the 50s was communism. People would be accused as follows. Are you now or have you ever been a communist? If a person was to be condemned, they were called a communist. Today, they're called a racist. The word racist today is used in the same way to brand people as the way communist was used in the 50s. And who is doing this? Who is smearing people? Everyone that you saw on that stage last night, from the hair sniffer to the very seriously mentally ill. What you're witnessing last night was a hypnotic class war in front of your eyes. And make no mistake about it, every last one of them on that stage, even Biden himself was playing the moderate guy, the steadying sail. He's being controlled by one of the most racist people in the history of the Democrat Party. His name is Perez. He's the head of the DNC. He used to work for Obama as the head of the so-called Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Justice Department. Perez is a stone-hearted racist. By following his policies, you'll know what I'm talking about. He is outlining the direction of the Democrat Party. So you have a very clear choice come the election. You have a choice between a man you may not love and a person who would destroy the United States as you know it. And remember who they are targeting. There's only one target of that entire stage, and that is the white middle-class wage earner. Now, I want to talk about LifeLock for one reason. I'm not going to trick you into listening, because this is very important. Because if you've used your bank's digital payment service to send someone money, like wiring, I want you to listen to this. Cyber thieves have found a way to steal from bank accounts by using this popular banking service. They can do it. And there are so many ways to break into a consumer's bank account and steal your money and your identity. And that's why I'm telling you there's LifeLock identity theft protection and the power of Norton that you should be using to protect yourself against threats. Because if there's a problem, their agents will work to fix it. I know the disclaimer is no one can prevent all identity theft. You know all of that. I want you to get LifeLock with Norton Security. Go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock. Promo code SAVAGE for 10% off your first year. That's promo code SAVAGE at LifeLock.com or 1-800-LifeLock for 10% off. Now let's go back again to what we were talking about, which is Bernie now on global warming. You got to listen to this lunatic. He's used it very successfully amongst the drug-addicted college students, and he's gotten very far with it on global warming. Listen to clip number 6, please.
The scientists tell us we have 12 years before there is irreparable damage to this planet. This is a global issue.
Wait, stop. The scientists? The scientists. Which scientists, Bernie? The ones that get federal grants? What do you mean, the scientists? What about the dissenting scientists who say we have 13 years left? And how do you know it's 12 years, Bernie? How do you know it's not 11 and a half years or 14 years, Bernie? Irreparable damage to this planet. And so, therefore, Trump is now the most evil man on the earth. And he said the common enemy is global warming and fossil fuels and big pharma. New enemies now, fossil fuels and big pharma. Well, you know, one of my higher degrees is in a field that is related to pharmacology. It's in plant pharmacology. And I was very fortunate to have as a professor a former director of research at a major pharmaceutical firm, one of the most wonderful scientists I ever met in my life. And I learned during my master's degree period, my first master's degree, how much it costs to bring a drug to market in the United States of America. Bernie doesn't know any of this. The number then was over $1 billion. That was a long time ago. From inception to clearance by the FDA, a new medicine costs over $1 billion in research, legal fees, filing fees, etc. $1 billion. Now, what would the incentive be if you keep ripping apart pharmaceutical firms and make them into the enemy? What kind of drugs would a pharmaceutical firm develop? Well, there's an answer to that question, Bernie. What drugs have come out of Cuba's pharmaceutical industry since Castro seized power? Nothing. Not even a derivative from sugarcane. That is what communism produces, nothing but hatred. And so everything that you hear them saying, the new buzzword is corporations, corporate power, corporations, big pharma, insurance companies, big pharma, corporations. This is exactly what the Soviets did to the farmers before they took over the farms and drove 30 million Russians into starvation. They started by demonizing the farmers, calling them kulaks. The same way Bernie and these left-wing fanatics are demonizing business people in the United States of America.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of A Savage Life, Michael Savage.
This is the moment I could no longer take this departure from reality. When Bern V. Sanders, I'm actually calling him Bern V. Sandman, once again called Trump a racist. I had had enough of that Brooklyn hater. I walked out and went to Chinese food with two friends.
What is your response to those who say nominating a socialist would re-elect Donald Trump?
Well, I think the responses at the polls, last poll I saw had us 10 points ahead of Donald Trump, because the American people understand that Trump is a phony, that Trump is a pathological liar and a racist, and that he lied to the American people during his campaign.
Stepping over the garbage, evading the golf clubs from the homeless, was nothing compared to listening to this loudmouth Bernie Sanders. Then commentators had a heated moment with Sanders over his record on guns, making believe he cares about hunters in Vermont.
That's a mischaracterization of my thinking. Look, we have a gun crisis right now. 40,000 people a year are getting killed. In 1988, Rachel, when it wasn't popular, I ran on a platform of banning assault weapons and, in fact, lost that race for Congress. I have a D- voting record from the NRA. And I believe that what we need is comprehensive gun legislation that, among other things, provides universal background. We end the gun show loophole. We end the straw man provision. And I believed in 1988, and I believe today.
Why would you
that
leave
assault weapons are weapons from the military, and that they should not be on the streets of America.
You would leave. Your plan leaves them on the streets. You leave 15 million on the streets.
We banned the sale and distribution, and that's what I believe for many years.
Will you buy them back?
If people want to buy, if the government wants to do that, if people want
you're
to
going to be the government,
yes.
Will you buy them back?
Yes.
Then, of course, the faker Kamala Harris warned that Trump is America's greatest threat. No, Kamala, you are the greatest threat to the truth.
We have to take these issues seriously, and frankly, we have a president of the United States. We talked about, you asked before, what is the greatest national security threat to the United States? It's Donald Trump.
And then after attacking Trump, the liar Harris went after Joe Biden.
I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing.
Look, everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
But Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No,
do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well,
I
there
did
was
not
a
oppose
failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision.
So that's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of all people.
Buttigieg said that the religious right were hypocrites for supporting the detention of immigrant children in cages.
The Republican Party likes to cloak itself in the language of religion. Now, our party doesn't talk about that as much, largely for a very good reason, which was we are committed to the separation of church and state, and we stand for people of any religion and people of no religion. But we should call out hypocrisy when we see it. And for a party that associates itself with Christianity, to say that it is okay to suggest that God would smile on the division of families at the hands of federal agents, that God would condone putting children in cages, has lost all claim to ever use religious language.
He's another liar. You know, not any of them can run anything. This is frightening. Andrew Yang is an idiot. So he made money in tech. What does that make him? He's just a moron. Did you hear him last night? He went after the tech companies on taxes, which is good. And he promised America would be a happier country if we would only redistribute wealth. Okay. Where have I heard that before? Wait, Karl Marx, right. Was Karl Marx or was it Lenin?
It's difficult to do if you have companies like Amazon, trillion-dollar tech companies, paying literally zero in taxes while they're closing 30% of our stores. Now, we need to put the American people in position to benefit from all these innovations in other parts of the economy. And if we had a value-added tax at even half the European level, it would generate over $800 billion in new revenue, which combined with the money in our hands, it would be the trickle-up economy from our people, families, and communities up. We would spend the money and it would circulate through our regional economies and neighborhoods, creating millions of jobs, making our families stronger and healthier. We'd save money on things like incarceration, homelessness services, emergency room health care, and just the value gains from having a stronger, healthier, mentally healthier population would increase GDP by $700 billion.
Stuck in the summer of love of the 1960s, the unknown Williamson said she could beat Trump with love.
I'm sorry we haven't talked more tonight about how we're going to beat Donald Trump. I have an idea about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not going to be beaten just by insider politics talk. He's not going to be beaten just by somebody who has plans. He's going to be beaten by somebody who has an idea what this man has done. This man has reached into the psyche of the American people, and he has harnessed fear for political purposes. So, Mr. President, if you're listening, I want you to hear me, please. You have harnessed fear for political purposes, and only love can cast that out. So sir, I have a feeling you know what you're doing. I'm going to harness love for political purposes. I will meet you on that field, and sir, love will win.
I don't know who she is. I don't know where she came from, but there she was nevertheless. So let me ask you some questions, and I'll tell you no lies. Who do you think was the biggest winner last night? And can any of them, in your mind, beat Trump? Now, I'm trying to think ahead to the final debate between Trump and the nominee selected from this gang of elves. It's either going to be Bernie or Biden. It's pretty clear to me it's going to be Biden. Bernie is a marginal character. They don't want him. They know that he's a communist. They don't want him for that reason. He's also unpredictable. They don't want him for that reason. He, frankly, is also very unappealing. They don't want him for that reason. And he's not really a member of the Old Boys Network. They don't want him for that reason. it's clearly going to be Biden versus Trump. Now, that's going to be an interesting debate, and we know the tack that Biden is going to take. It's pretty clear the new advisors of the Democrat Party are smart. They're not dumb. And the number one advisor to them is one of the meanest people in the history of the Democrat Party, which is Mr. Perez, who ran the Civil Rights Division under Barack Hussein Obama. He was a mean one, but he's really smart. He comes from the trenches. He knows how to fight. And he has positioned Biden as a centrist who's a calming agent. And he told him not to go too low. So when you want to go all the way forward with me for a moment, maybe it's too early for this. Maybe it's just the beginning of it all. Let's say it's Biden versus Trump. We know Trump's fighting style. Let's say we're looking at two fighters. Trump's fighting style is to come out swinging and to rip the other one to shred and try to chop him up and knock him down right off the bat. Am I right? If you were to see two boxers and Trump was a boxer, what would he do? He's the kind of guy who comes out of the corner like a hurricane, and he immediately tries to overpower the other fighter with a flurry of punches, putting him down, da-da-da-da-da. Biden is not as strong as Trump. However, Biden has been told to play a quiet game, to play a defensive game, and to let the opposition burn themselves out with their flurry of punches. You know, that's a strategy as well. It's done in fights. It's done in ball games. It's done in marriages. The women always win anyway over a long period of time. The guys think they're tougher than the women. But why are there so many women and more women, older women than men? Why? Because the men never win those verbal fights. You can't. It's impossible. You cannot win. It's impossible. The women are stronger. Why are women stronger? Why are women stronger than men if they outlive men? Well, there's a reason for that too, biologically. If you study it, it's because women have to be stronger to put up with men, number one. That's a joke. That's a rim shot joke. But number two, think about what a woman has to do with her body during her life compared to a man. A woman has to bear children, carry the child, bear the child, recover from the trauma of birth, raise the child. I want you to think about that. And there's an old adage, that which does not kill you makes you stronger. And that's why women are stronger. They're made to be stronger. But getting back to this issue of the defensive fight, Biden is a defensive fighter, and he's been told not to try to fight Trump head on. Let me give you another great soundbite before we move on the Savage Nation. Pelosi came on and gave a speech saying it should not be a crime to cross the border illegally. That means here is a sitting U.S. Congresswoman, the head of the Democrat Party, saying that she does not respect the law, saying that she respects lawbreakers, not the lawmakers.
So let's just step back from it from a policy standpoint. This is one of those metered situations where people who come to our country and want to be admitted have to meet certain standards. That's the way it is. But it isn't, and I have this conversation with my Republican colleagues frequently, it shouldn't be a crime to have a visa, to have a status violation.
Incidentally, about the dead child with the father on the border, as tragic as it may be, it is sad for me to tell you that over 40 such cases occurred while Barack Obama was president, and they were never reported, at least not to the extent that this sad story was reported. 40 such cases are reported, and I think the article's on Breitbart, with pictures of the dead migrants and their children. What do you think happens to people who are leaving these destitute places with very little money, with the clothing on their back? They probably have to pay $6,000 or $9,000, which is their life savings, to these drug smugglers who take them out in the desert and dump them in the desert with a bottle of water if they're lucky. Of course some are going to die. It's a terrible reality. And it happened under Obama at least 40 times that we know of. Now, I want to talk about that for 1 second in terms of the reality of our daily life. If you are the type of person, as I am, who actually observes life around you, which is one of the things I do, you look at the workers today, the Hispanic workers, no matter what they're doing, construction, gardening, you ever notice how strong they look? Do you know why they look so strong? Because every one of them had to fight their way through a desert. Then they had to fight gangs in Mexico to even get here. Look, I have a guy I know from El Salvador. a really tough guy. He told me how many times he was held up and beaten up on the road through Mexico. Do you have any idea what the Mexicans do to people coming through their country? At least what they used to do. They would rob them. If they were women, they would rape them in many cases. And they certainly beat them just for fun. So the toughest of the tough are the ones who make it through. Do you know that? Now, you could say that's good for a country that's become so paltry and weak. And maybe that is the truth. Be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now. 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
You're listening to Michael Savage and the Savage Nation on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
When a guy who ended up becoming our national leader said, I can grab a woman anywhere and she likes it, and then said, I didn't make a mistake, but they asked me, would I like to debate this gentleman? And I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him. Well, I've been in a lot of locker rooms my whole life, a pretty damn good athlete. Any guy who talked that way was usually the fattest, ugliest SOB in the room.
Watch out for Biden. You can laugh at him if you want to be a part of the beached whales and porpoises that are rotting on the beach. Watch out. You better know reality. He's a real threat. Why is he a real threat? Because he's not threatening. What did I just say? The reason Biden is a real threat to Trump is because he's not threatening to women, and he's not threatening to the average person. Do you understand? He's a non-threatening older white guy who they think will bring back stability to America. That would all be well and good if it were true. But frankly, it'll just be another Obama regime. The very same people will take over everything. The military will go back to what it was. The hatred towards white males will pick up again. The rabid anti-American, anti-male feminists will be seen in every position. That's the problem. It's not him so much. It's the people that would come along with him on his coattails. I can't wait for him and Sanders to go at each other. I can't wait to hear what Sanders is going to say to undermine Biden. It'll be something along the lines of, now, although you touched girls and women with the hair, you are known as a hair sniffer. Let's not deny it. That is something we cannot deny. If you're going to run for the presidency, we do know you're a hair sniffer. And that is something that we must really seriously look at. Now, on the other hand, what is in your favor is the fact that you've been in the political world for 30, 35 years and you have not made a darn. It shows you are stupid. I am a communist, and even I, as a communist, made $1 million last year. So how could you be in office for 35 years and make nothing? It proves you're a moron. So therefore, it disqualifies you completely from the office of the presidency because you're not even smart enough to capitalize on your position. You're not corrupt enough. That's what I think is going to happen. It's possibly true. I don't see what they're going to say to each other. Now, what would Biden say to a loser, the Seltzer man? You extolled communist Russia during the height of the Soviet era. Will he even understand that, Biden? I don't even know if he knows what the Soviet Union was. I know he knows that Ukraine is attached to the Soviet Union because his son was on the board of directors of a company that made a lot of money off the Ukraine deal. So that's going to be, if the Trump administration is listening to reality here and wants to listen to people who know what's going on, they really better investigate John Solomon's article from The Hill on the Ukraine nightmare. And the probe is being reopened, by the way, just in time. And it's the issue of Biden's son, Hunter Biden, business partner, Devon Archer, and their firm, Rosemont Seneca, and potential recipients of money. It's all in that article in The Hill by John Solomon. And if it's in The Hill, I guarantee you I wouldn't guarantee the Republicans are seeing it. I don't know what they know. Sometimes I think they're a bunch of tone-deaf grifters. That's all I think about. Sometimes I think all I care about is how much money they're raking in. How many animals they could kill and sell as skins. If they could kill every elephant in Africa and sell as skins for a profit and give money to the RNC, they would do it. And they'd laugh at you for being a tree hugger. Elizabeth Warren can't win because she's too mean looking. She looks like the type that would have worked in the Wehrmacht.
Savage.
Michael Savage, weekdays from noon to 3 on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Now, again, there's a major league scandal in the background. Joe Biden's 2020 Ukrainian nightmare, a closed probe, is revived by John Solomon. That is the one scandal that can get him. So now, listen, I don't want Biden to win. Don't think I am ambivalent. I am here as a neutral observer and to stimulate discussion. I've asked you, can Biden be Trump? And it's your show. I have also given the Trump campaign ammunition they don't currently have. The Ukraine nightmare, which I pointed out from the Hill. I do hope they have the article, but I wouldn't know. I have no idea who is advising them. You got to get rid of all the stuff created by the evil white man's culture, Joe. I mean, if you're going to throw out what they did in the 16th century, why stop at that, Joe? Now, the fact of the matter is, Joe Biden should be taken very seriously. You think he's not a candidate who can beat Trump, you're a fool, and you're being fooled. If the best you've got against Joe Biden is the sniffing of the hair, you're finished. Because do I have to remind you what was thrown at Trump with the grabbing of the you-know-what and all of those other things that were thrown at him? It didn't affect him. So I think you really ought to let go of the hair sniffing.
So here's
that is about the most
Zapper
infantile,
looking at
stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. And by the way, most women don't care about it. They think it's a trumped-up garbage thing.
And it's the
So let's
second
look
one,
at Joe
360
Biden
lead,
for a
work
few
on-
minutes today on the Savage Nation. And I will ask you a leading question. And you're going to call me or you're not going to call me. But do you think Biden can beat Trump? Why or why not? Do you think Biden can beat Trump? Why or why not? In the latest poll, if polls are at all indicative or predictive, apparently Biden is polling ahead of Trump. Shock poll, Biden opens 8-point lead on Trump. 8-point lead. So if we're not taking Biden seriously, he could easily beat Trump if this keeps up, and I will tell you why. But I want your opinion. Here is a couple of reasons. I asked you, do you think Biden can beat Trump? Why or why not? Now, some people want things to be back the way they were before Trump came along. Right or wrong, whether it's the media or Trump himself, whether it's his abrasive nature, his combative New York nature, and I have the same nature, the country is more divided than it's ever been. And the people hate it. They're sick of it. And I personally think that an awful lot of women and an awful lot of independents would even take a Biden if this keeps up. They don't like the division. They don't like the hatred. You could say it's the media's fault, and you wouldn't be wrong. But on the other hand, Biden is kind of a middle-of-the-road, average Joe. He's a blue-collar guy. He's not a rich guy. He never made money while in office. By the way, in fact, he's so stupid he never capitalized on his office. He's actually so dumb he never became rich as a politician. But there is a scandal, and it's a huge one. And I dug it up for you because I owe it to you. And it's about the Ukraine issue, where his son was on the board of directors of a major league company over there. Joe Biden's 2020 Ukrainian nightmare. A closed probe is revived by John Solomon of the Hill. And you're going to look at the story and your hair's going to stand up and you're going to say, wow, this is awful. That there was such a big deal going on, that Hunter Biden's American-based firm, Rosemont Seneca Partners, LLC, received regular transfers into one of its accounts, usually more than $166,000 a month, from this Ukrainian company, Burisma, from spring of 2014 through fall of 2015. That was during a period when VP Biden was the main U.S. official dealing with Ukraine and its tense relations with Russia. This is John Solomon's blockbuster article. It's a huge story. Joe Biden's 2020 Ukrainian nightmare. A closed probe is revived by John Solomon. I would assume that the Trump administration has seen the article. There's another element of the Biden campaign that you have to be aware of, which is that he said, I asked President Obama not to endorse me. Former VP Joe Biden said he asked former President Barack Obama not to endorse his campaign, according to the Washington Free Beacon. Biden told reporters in his home state of Delaware, and he said, I asked President Obama not to endorse, and he doesn't want to. Whoever wins this nomination should win it on their own merits. It means that there's some schism inside the Democrat Party that we're not aware of. It's a huge story, by the way. It says Joe Biden is the front runner over Democrats and Donald Trump. New poll consulted by, well, they're not reliable. Politico, are you kidding? But nevertheless, it's an interesting story. He's certainly jumped ahead of all of the other lunatics. All of them. The one following him is Bernie Communist Sanders, the Seltzer man. In America, people go with stability. Generally, they go with stability. Unless there's a war or an economic upheaval, people want stability in this country. Most Americans, whether you know it or not, are middle of the roaders. I don't know what you think of most Americans, but most people are middle roaders. They want to be left alone, to go along with their lives. And they're feeling, you know what, after all this turmoil, no matter how good the economy is, I can't take it anymore. You know, maybe we won't have to listen to the word Biden every all day long. That's what I'm just telling you what they're thinking. Don't ask me if I agree. I am telling you what the average American is thinking because I know better than anyone in this country what the average American is thinking. Now, I'll tell you right now, if Biden continues bashing white males, he will shoot himself in both feet. If Biden doesn't stop listening to the progressive psychos who are whispering in his ear, the anti-white male haters, he's going to lose. That's what's going to happen. But if he doesn't do that, if he stops bashing white man and white male culture, he might have a chance to become the next president. Biden can win, in my opinion. That's if he becomes the nominee. Now, there's the rub, my children. There is the rub. Because I don't know that he's going to get it because of the psycho-feminists and the anti-white male haters inside the Democrat Party. Everything that the communists have ever promised, Donald Trump has delivered. Never has the society had a greater sense of well-being economically than we do now. Everything that the left promises and cannot deliver has been delivered through naked capitalism. Everything this loser with bad shoes, ugly teeth, and a failed, I can't even say it, but his wife is a woman who's under the gun right now for having defrauded the college that she ran. Oh, yes. You haven't seen that on the Wolf Blitzer brigades, have you? Take a look at Bernie Sanders' wife. Take a look at Bernie Sanders' tax returns for last year. He's doing very well indeed, like the missionaries who came to Hawaii to do good. They did very well indeed. They wound up owning the islands. All five of the founding families of the Big Five wound up almost all of the leasehold land in Hawaii because they hoodwinked the native Hawaiians, stole their land. They came to do good, and they did very well indeed. Bernie is coming to do good, and he's doing very well indeed, as are all of the academic thieves who do nothing in their chairs at the colleges, like that little Robert Reich, the mental midget, was out agitating for communism. Even though he's a tenured Berkeley, collecting probably $250,000 a year and God knows what, teaching no classes, so far as I can tell, and all he does is agitate students. He is one of thousands of parasites of the academic system. You know, Bernie, you're so smart. You're an educated man. You've got the forked tongue of all rhetoricians. You know where this rhetoric comes from, Bernie Sanders, and you know where it leads. And yet doesn't stop you from fomenting revolution in this country. With millions of stupid children who grow up on drugs and no education whatsoever other than the same hatred you're preaching, you're just liable to achieve what you want. You're liable to wind up on that bullet train leading America. And then what are you going to do with that power, Bernie? Let's take it to its extreme. Let's run out a nightmare scenario. Bernie Sanders and his hordes are now running America. That's a couple of years from now. It happens. Tell me how they would run America. What would they do? What would their platform consist of? It would be taking away what is yours and giving it to those who never earned it. In other words, the very mobs that are out in the streets will be living in your house. And as in the Bolshevik Revolution, if they were kind enough, they would let you live in the basement. He would take the homeless bums who were crapping in the streets of San Francisco and let them take over your houses. Isn't that equality? Isn't that justice for all? Isn't that what he means? Isn't he blaming you for the bums in the streets? Isn't he saying you're the reason that the bums are in the streets? Again, my friends, arm yourself with information. The insanity of Bernie Sanders' rhetoric has been heard before. It's been heard since the devil himself emerged from the bowels of the universe. Bernie Sanders is a reincarnation of the devil, combined with Karl Marx's rhetoric. And the results are not yet in. You understand what I'm saying to you? Educate yourself and get ready. This is a class war at this time. It is the rabble against the legitimate tax-paying middle class. What are your rights? Be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
You're listening to Michael Savage. Coming up at 3, it's Mark Levin on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
What Bernie Sanders proposes on a daily basis would have put him in prison in the 1950s. Listen to Bernie Sanders on letting convicted terrorists like the Boston bomber vote. Listen to this evil man in clip 2.
You think the Boston Marathon bomber should vote not after he pays his debt to society, but while he's in jail. You sure about that?
You know, this is what I believe. Do you believe in democracy? Do you believe that every single American 18 years of age or older who's an American citizen has the right to vote? Once you start chipping away at that, believe me, this is a democracy. We've got to expand that democracy. And I believe every single person does have the right to vote.
So that's someone who assaulted a woman or raped 10 women. They should vote too. Listen to clip 3 now of the evil, dangerous communist Bernie Sanders in clip 3.
If somebody commits a serious crime, sexual assault, murder, they're going to be punished. Jail for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, their whole lives. That's what happens when you commit a serious crime. But I think the right to vote is inherent to our democracy. Yes, even for terrible people.